Thank you very much to all of you for joining session today. Again, this is Subbiah Sundaram, I run products for Haiku. Today, you have heard from a lot of great speakers who covered a lot of different public clouds, AWS, Azure, GCP, and then a lot of the other vendors like the traditional virtualization vendors like VMware and so on. So the question is that we just heard a great talk about UiPath and how we can automate. At the end of the day, all of this comes to data. And what I'm going to talk about right now is slightly different than what you heard from a lot of the other people. But the key thing here is that everything comes to data, and the key thing for you is to how do you protect it. This is part of your organization, and everybody has to deal with it every day in and day out. So it's one of your core elements of your organization. So I'm just going to quickly go through who's Haiku and then walk through it. I don't want to bore you here. In the interest of time, Haiku, we are a company based right out of Boston here. We obviously sell worldwide, headquartered in Boston. We focus on multi-cloud data protection. From an organization perspective, we have a little over 2,000 customers. And the most important thing which we are very proud of is what we call our Net Promoter Score. This is a score which customers like you tell us saying, are we doing a good job? Are we making sure we are solving their problem? And we are very happy to report our score is 91, which is one of the highest in the data protection industry. So people, since we are a younger company than many other people you have heard from today, people ask us, so what do you guys sell to? How big are you? And so on. We are a company which have sold into pretty much every vertical you guys can think about. And we have over 2,000 customers, as I mentioned. And we do sell worldwide. From the audience here, predominantly people in the government space, we sell into the federal space. We sell into a lot of public sector organizations. We sell into a lot of the state and local governments. Across the board, we have customers. I want to just show you a simple sample, a small sample of some of the customers here. Obviously, we have lots more customers I can actually go on, but we are very happy that pretty much all of the armed forces, a lot of the government organizations, a lot of the state and local governments actually are existing Haiku customers. Customers so far, customers have been great and fantastic. And I think industry leaders, industry analysts also have actually recognized us. Here are some of the sample of the industry recognition about our solution. One of the questions which comes up for us quite often is when it comes to public cloud, when people are thinking in terms of clouds, be it private cloud or public cloud, they say, I have a cloud, why do I need to back up? Is it backup really required? The thing which I tell people is that, yes, your public cloud vendor keeps your infrastructure highly available, your applications highly available. Yes, if it's a SaaS, if you buy it, those things, they really make sure it's highly available. But the challenge is that at the end of the day, we are humans. As the person who talked about the UiPath mentioned, there's a lot of automation, but humans are doing it. People do sometimes make mistakes. Error is human, right? So that's where there is human error. It doesn't matter whether you're a public cloud or private cloud, that still happens. Second part is the operational management. All of us have to go through upgrades of the system, upgrades of the software, so on. During that time, you want to make sure you're fully protected, because in case during your upgrade doesn't go well, you have to go back. So that's an example of thing. And last but not the least, government has lots of compliance needs. We are supposed to keep our data for a large number of years. In case there's a question, you got to go back and look at what happened. So that is a lot of reason. When we say this, sometimes people still question saying, is it really, I need to write a backup? I said, okay, at some point, if you still are not convinced, go and look at your contract from the different cloud vendors. For example, I just have a snapshot of what Microsoft tells customers in the contract. They will keep the infrastructure available. Data is something your responsibility to protect. This is pretty much every cloud vendor you look at it, any software or service provider you look at it, that's what they would say. Because data is independent of the application itself. Okay, so people ask us, we talked about the cloud, why it needs to back up. People then say, Okay, no big deal. All of us actually have backup software. We used to run backup software in our current infrastructure. Why don't we use the same thing for all the public cloud? Or as we get the new data sources, why don't we use the same thing? What I tell people is that, yes, you could do that. But the question is, let's rethink, why did we go to public cloud? Why did we rethink not just public cloud? Why did we think that we have to create a new data lake? Why did we think we have to redo some of the processes? Or like the UI team mentioned, why do we have to rethink the process itself? Because we want speed, we want agility. And that essentially means a change in the process, change in the way we do things. That's one of the things customers should rethink. That's the first part. The second thing is, every time you go to a new cloud, you want the speed and agility. To get the speed and agility, you cannot take your traditional systems, which actually had a huge process built in. It's going to slow you down. So that's one of the reasons we always tell people is, when you look at some of these digital transformation you're making, make sure your data protection software can handle that. Example, every cloud you choose has its own unique value. Can your backup software leverage the value? The whole reason you're investing in a lot of these public cloud and the new data lakes and infrastructure is because you find valuable. So you want to make sure your data protection software is adaptable to or actually can recognize the value in the software. That way you can make sure you don't, just because you adopted the greatest technology, but if you use an old one, then it's going to slow you down. So you want to make sure it's fully built in. Examples are, every platform has what's called snapshots, cloning, replication capabilities. Your backup software, your data protection software should be smart enough to leverage it. Otherwise, it's going to slow it down. That's just simple examples. So the simple thing which we tell people is that it's a question of saying, as you guys know, this one size does not fit all. In the on-prem world, we had a very controlled environment, and it was good. But now when you start doing these different clouds or different services, then you have to make sure it's an adaptable solution. So what do you look for in a good, true multi-cloud solution, or a multi-cloud service solution, I should say? You could have a Google on one side, Azure on the other one, AWS on the other one. In-house, you could actually have VMware infrastructure. You have infrastructure spread, data spread all across. So what do you look for in a good data protection solution? First thing is, make sure, try to choose a solution which is a backup as a service, meaning it's easy to turn on and use it as much as you want. And if you decide to move, you should be turn it off or shift it to the other cloud. That's what you want to be able to do, because you need the flexibility. Obviously, it has to cover your data right now is spread across a variety of data sources, right? It's your applications, your databases, your containers, your Kubernetes. I'm sure many of you are looking at entire microservices and entire data CI/CD pipeline and so on. How do you make sure your backup software can adapt to that rather than slow you down? That's the first one. The second one is elastic scale. If you're going to run 30 bots every night suddenly and spike up and then run through all the analysis and then shut it down, you want your infrastructure to be able to spin up and spin down like that, right? It cannot be saying, oh, I got to be static and it'll be designed for, that was yesterday. Today, when you run in a public cloud and when you want the dynamic nature, you need to make sure your infrastructure can scale up and down like that. That is something. Last couple of things, it is just not about the backup. Many of you need a solution which actually allows you to move between the clouds, because for a variety of reasons, you choose different clouds for different capability. You need that. And you also need disaster recovery capability in case you lose a region, network connectivity issues, things like that. You need to be able to bring it up on the other region, other cloud. That's something there. And make sure clouds are great, but if you don't use it properly, it could cost you significantly. So you got to make sure the solutions you choose actually are adapting. They know how to handle the cloud, understand the cloud economics. That's one of the things there. So what does it all come down to? I know I talked a lot about all the philosophy behind it. I'm sure all of you guys thinking, so what does it come to practically? Obviously, all of you guys are thinking in terms of applications. I've put some of the traditional applications also there. I'm sure many of you actually have a lot of modern applications, very custom-built applications built on some of these things. And you can have it run on-prem. You can actually be migrating some of them to the public cloud. And as well as you probably already have some of the data in the public cloud. That's your data. Now, just simple, it's a very simplified picture of your infrastructure. Obviously, you have a lot more than this. So then now the question comes down to saying, what does it mean to you? And what does Haiku do for that? What Haiku does is three things the way I think of. One is, first, you got to protect your data, be it on-prem. A lot of you have tons of information. You cannot overnight transform everything as people would like it to. You have to protect the data. And many of your organizations are probably saying, how could I start adopting cloud and what can I do first? First is, how do you protect the data low on-prem? Make it simple. That's the first part. Second thing is, how do you protect the data on-prem on public clouds so that you can start getting your data out to the other clouds? That's the first part. Make it simple. That is something Haiku can actually provide you with that. Be the data be in your VMware environment, Nutanix environment, whichever environment you actually are running on-prem. Classic 3-tier, that is something we should be able to protect. Make it simple. That's the first part. The second one is around the journey to the cloud. It's about saying you have the data there. Now you decide to say, I want to bring some of the workloads on the cloud. Especially the example we said again, if you go on to run different bots at different times and spin up at different rates and go down and thing, you want to be able to spin up and spin down. That's being able to journey to the cloud. How simple can we make it? Lots of people run lots of professional services. That's great, but that's not a scalable long-term model. You want simplicity built in your infrastructure. That is something Haiku does. The third thing is around, it's just not about migrating to the public cloud. It's actually how do you manage the data on the public cloud, be it in one of the data services running in the public cloud or in your virtual machines and applications or containers. How do you protect it, right? And number one, protecting it there. Second thing is within the public cloud, between regions, you should be able to migrate between regions or like a DR between regions. The question is, can you do that? That is just something Haiku can do. It's protect your data, allow you to migrate your data, provide you disaster recovery across both your on-prem and the public cloud, both across your local on-prem services as well as the public cloud data services. That's something we do. So boiling it all down to very much in a product-centric view, I'll just give you, this is probably one of my few product-centric views of the world. I'll just probably give that. A big difference is that you probably are wondering, many of you know lots of backup software and you wonder, so what's special about Haiku? What we do here is that for every cloud you guys actually have, every private cloud, every infrastructure you have, we have something what we call purpose-built solution we have built in for each one of them. Be it Nutanix, VMware, physical servers, Google, Azure, AWS, which each one of the platforms, we have built something native to the platform. We made it a service of the platform. That is one thing we built because we want to make sure when you go to a cloud, you just turn on a service, use it, and turn it off. That's the level of flexibility we need. So purposeful for each one of them. The second thing, it is just not being a service. The question is obviously you want to manage it all of them together. That's where our Haiku Protege comes in. The Haiku Protege brings all of the data across these multiple clouds for you to view, manage, as well as allow you to move the data between one cloud to the other. The system takes care of automatic data, the format conversion, things like that. It does it for you. That's a data migration as well as the disaster recovery. So manage, when you're in each one of the clouds, use the best capability. And if you want to migrate between the data, the system can actually help you. That's Haiku. That's what Haiku does for you. Again, data protection, data migration, and disaster recovery. All this from the context of an application. So people ask us again, can you tell me a little more about how do you do it? What's special about each one of them? First thing I told you about purpose-built. When I say purpose-built, people think it's marketing buzzword. In reality, no, it's something we fundamentally think about. First thing is that, as I said, it's native to the platform. It's a service of the platform. It looks and feels like the platform. It is the same terminology. When you're on Google, it should feel, the terminology should be Google. You go to Google Marketplace, turn it on, and use the functionality, the terminology, look and feel the same. Everything is the same. It's a service running on that. Same thing when you're on Azure. Same thing when you're on VMware. It should all be a service of the platform. That's what you want to do. The second thing is around simplicity. As some of the gentlemen earlier talked about, simplicity is key, especially when you're going through so much changes and digital transformation happening. If you have the complex if you're going to carry over some of the complexity of the VAMs, you're going to slow your down. So make sure it is simple. We talk about one-click backup and simple migration and simplicity. You got to see it to believe it. In the short interest of time today, I'm not able to show you, but we're very happy to spend time to show you why we truly mean when we say one-click backup and simplicity there. Elastic scale, I talked about it earlier. The key thing is that as you spin up and spin down, your system should be able to scalable. Don't get locked in by some infrastructure where you have to be stuck to, oh, the box can handle only so many things, and that's what that was something we had before. Now you should not be stuck in that. You should be able to scale up and down as you need it. That's something there. Again, don't get stuck with agentless backup. Be agents in the backup world. Agents were something which used to be the way people used to do. Don't go for agentless, and that's what we can actually deliver. Last thing, everything you do should be in the context of application, because your business at the end of the day cares about the applications. All the infrastructure which I'm talking about, it's nice, but it's a means to an end. It's not what the end is. The end is application. That's what they care. And everything we do, we have lots of information infrastructure around it. We can talk about it. I think we talked about the NPS Net Promoter Score of 91. It's important. So I've talked about it. I have a few minutes. I'll just probably mention a couple of things I want to actually talk about. Ransomware is something people hear all the time. I'm sure many of you have heard of ransomware. It's not new at all. It's in the news all the time. I can tell you lots of stories in real world customer scenarios where people have been stuck in ransomware, caught, and middle of the night they get a call. One of our people gets a call and say, oh my God, I'm stuck with ransomware. The only thing running in the infrastructure is Haiku. Can Haiku please help us recover the data? And we have been so happy to, I mean, it's sad that the customer got stuck, but we are happy that we were able to get the customer back and running without having to pay any ransom. That is something I'm extremely happy. Again, there are lots of things organizations should do to prevent it, but if you are ever stuck, we should be able to get you the data back quickly. And that is what we help you. And you got to make sure your data is safe, and that's what we allow you to do that. The question is, people say, oh, it's not something in my organization. No, it's actually happened in lots of organizations. Even later today, one of the other organizations are going to talk about ransomware. It is a significant problem today for organizations. So it's not a question of if, it's a question of when it's going to attack. So I'll just quickly run through from who gets impacted. As many of you, I'm sure when we talk to customers, they say, I didn't get impacted, but I know this person got impacted, that company got impacted, things like that happens all the time. Governments are great targets for these ransomware people. Governments and medical agencies, things like that comes up all the time. So please be very cautious, and that's something we can actually help you with. If you think about ransomware and protection, there is no one simple magical solution. A lot of people think there's one simple pill you can take and solve, and I wish there was something like that. It is not the case. It's a multi-layered approach. You have to do a multi-layered approach. That is what we recommend to customers. It's almost like you got to keep, it's a fort with lots of different gates. That's what you do. And here's the simple thing of what we do, right? I mean, like we tell customers it's a 10-step approach, starting that, and that's what the layers are there. If you are interested in finding out more about what do I really mean by that, we actually have a document, a checklist for customers to start with. It's just a start, and if you want, we can actually help you with at no charge. We'll come and help you, just assess your infrastructure. What we call tiny, there's a thing on the top, it says tinyurl.com/say no to ransom. Just check it out. That's just gives you a start of how to think about it. We can talk a lot more about it. The last slide, which I have, and I think a key takeaway I want you to leave today, last but one slide. The last thing is that when you choose a solution for protecting your infrastructure, first thing is simplify it. One of the ways to start with simplifying it is use a backup as a service. Don't go managing, even when you go to public clouds or look at different clouds. You cannot start doing a lot of operation stuff. That's the first part. Second thing, make sure, as part of the first one, I should say, make sure it supports all of what you care about, which is all of your virtual machines, applications, containers, all that stuff, because you are modernizing. You have to be ready for where you're going to be, not just today, right? That's the first part. The second one, make sure it's elastically scalable. Don't get stuck with infrastructure which are static and fixed block size. That was yesterday. You want to be more of You're all thinking in terms of transformation. You want to think in terms of dynamic agility there. That's there, elastic scale. Things around migration and DR, this is going to become, it's not a once in a while operation. With people starting to, on an average, people use at least 5 different cloud services. Migration is the name of the game. It is going to be a constant thing. You want to make sure your solution can help you there. Don't make this a nice to have, it's a must have as we go forward. Disaster recovery, it's not, I don't have to preach you guys all know that, it's important. Last thing, clouds are great. Make sure your solution you choose is intelligent. Because I've had customers who have got burned by, they thought they can run their existing infrastructure on the cloud and run it. Once they start seeing the bill, they go crazy. And the main reason is that the traditional software built for on-prem does not understand cloud economics. Cloud is great, but you have to understand it to use it properly. That's why your software has to be intelligent to understand the cloud economics. That's something there. So the last thing I want to leave you with, if you want to try any of the services, if you want to try any of the services yourself, go to tryhaiku.com, tryhyc.com. That's the first thing. Second thing, if you want the checklist, if you're interested, please check it out. Say no to ransom. Again, very simple, tiny URL, say no to ransom. That's what it is. Last thing, if you have any questions, send us a note. We'd be very happy to actually engage with you. Again, it's not just a sell. We can actually help you assess your infrastructure to see, are you fully protected in the clouds of your choice and where you're headed.